Alrighty, welcome to episode 267 of Backpacking America. It's so nice to speak to you guys again. I've had some trouble getting this going this week, but I'm glad I'm able to actually dedicate some time to talking. I wanted to, the last 2 days that I wasn't streaming, I was really thinking about what to talk about. Maui is evolving into one of those, um, you know, things that is just ever changing, like the Trump case, and now Trump was in jail. Now he's not in jail. I don't even know what's going on. I will be doing a Maui update though, because there's a lot of shit going on with that, and it's getting sketchier and sketchier the more I look at it. So that will be coming soon. Stay tuned for that. But I really want to talk about today was why we need term limits. And this really became clear to me after I saw this motherfucker, Mitch McConnell. I saw Mitch McConnell freezing up like at every press conference. And this is really damaging to the Republican Party. And let me tell you something. Like, they have an absolute point when it comes to Biden not being mentally fit for office. They are 100% right about that. He cannot run in 2024. He will die in office. It's amazing he hasn't died now. And I want to preface this by saying I don't wish death upon old people because I don't like their policies. I'm just saying that, like, the guy should live out his last years of life in peace and comfort and not fucking doing this shit. And the same goes for Mitch McConnell. But this is dangerous to the Republican Party because now they're saying, oh, look, the Democrats are so incompetent. Look who they have running the show. And now Mitch McConnell, who is the minority leader of the Senate, is like dying right now. He's literally in like he can't even speak at press conferences. This is looking very, very bad for the Republican Party. Now, it hasn't taken too much of a toll on the narrative, at least with their base, where they're like, oh, Sleepy Joe, Sleepy Joe. But now Mitch McConnell is like freezing up and having all these health problems. And this isn't the first time either that we've seen, legacy politicians have health issues while they're in office. Dianne Feinstein. I don't even know. I think she's still in office. Dianne Feinstein has had, I think, a couple of bouts with cancer and some other illnesses. And, thank God she came out all right because, that's a horrible disease to have. But this woman is older than the ballpoint pen. She was born in 1932, and the ballpoint pen came out in 1938. For comparison, Germany still had a democracy in 1932. Hitler didn't even win the election until 1933 of March. So Dianne Feinstein was born before Germany became a dictatorship. To give you some clarity here about how old this woman is. And I don't think age should necessarily be. Some people have been talking about age limits. There's been, an age limits just beyond, like, extending beyond, like, eligibility for office. Like, oh, you shouldn't be over 60 if you're, or 65 if you're looking for a career in government. Or you have Vivek Ramaswamy who's saying you shouldn't be younger than 25 if you want to vote unless you join the military or are a first responder. I think both of those ideas are fucking stupid. Young people are a voting block. Old people, very old people, are a voting block. And they both have unique issues and circumstances that need to be represented in the Congress and in the presidency. But mental competency is absolutely necessary. You must be mentally competent. Meaning, you don't, in the middle of a speech, or go and then wander off after a fucking ice cream truck. That's not good either. Also, term limits where you can't make a career out of it. I think it should be a 2-term limit. And then that's it. And then you take a little break, and then you can come back, and then you could run again. But you can't have, back to back to back to back to back legacy in the Congress, because now you have political careerism that creates a lot of fucked up things like insider trading, corruption, nepotism, dynastism. No one wants that. I mean, there was the Kennedys that we've had for decades, and until the 80s or the 90s, they were a political dynasty. The Clintons, the Bushes, all these things. There needs to be term limits in Congress. They're like the last, outside of the Supreme Court, they're like the last institution in our country where you can have multiple terms, and basically be a politician for life if you so choose. And being a politician for life isn't healthy because it crushes any incentive for, a new challenger or an up and comer to take the reins. I think there needs to be a constant rotation of names and faces in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. There absolutely must be. There should be term limits. It should be 2 4-year or 2 2-year term limits. I'm sorry, the Senate, the Senate, your term is 6 years, and the House of Representatives is every 2 years. So for the House, you can only serve 4 years consecutively, in the Senate, only 12 years consecutively. And I think that, keeping it like that will eliminate a lot of political corruption. Careerism, we'll get a lot of regular, Joes getting in there. We'll get a lot of union guys. We'll get a lot of teachers, lawyers, doctors, people like me. I would be interested in politics, but I wouldn't be interested in political careerism or making a life out of it. It's just something I'd like to do. So, I think it should be absolutely, limited so that way people don't get too far ahead of themselves and their intentions are genuine. It also keeps the ability to create an instance like a Dianne Feinstein or a Joe Biden. It prevents that. It basically says you can't have such a long career that you can hold on to your seat until your 90s. That should not be. You should have a very brief career in government and then move on to something else. Do something else with your life. It's not healthy to be in politics that long. All of these people that are in politics, they look so corroded and old and empty. And it's because of how soulless it is. It's actually quite a horrible, nasty business, and that's one of the reasons I got out of it. I was not an office holder, but I was an organizer for, I was in the socialist movement. So it was very combative and rigorous, and there was a lot of morals and rules you had to follow, and it was just, you couldn't live a free life. No, and it's the same story. I see the same problems with those that are Democratic organizers and Republican organizers, and they're not even running for office. They're just at the organizing level. I've seen that. So I genuinely would like to see a return to an abandonment of careerism and a return to just actually trying to do the right thing for the country. And I think that term limits are a great way to start. And, it's very concerning to see that we're seeing nepotism and careerism weaken the United States a lot. I can't even speak English today, guys. I'm sorry. The Chinese are messing with us. The Russians are messing with us. We have a lot of, the Maui fires. The governor of Hawaii declared it. I'm sorry. The mayor of Maui declared the entire island a media-free zone, which is a violation of the First Amendment. You have New York Governor Kathy Hochul violating the Second Amendment consistently and often and frequently. She's making it now so on September 13th you need to pay an additional $2.50 tax on any ammunition order you have, and then they're taking over the background check. They're implementing background checks for ammunition, and now they're taking over the background checks for firearms as well. So now if the state background check system crashes, then it can no longer be transferred to the FBI since they took it over. So you just won't be able to get a gun or any ammunition, which is a serious problem for people that want to defend themselves or want to go hunting or just want a new gun because they like it, because they just want to get a new gun. What's the point? Like I bought a 22 rifle recently because it's cheaper to shoot and it's fun and no recoil, so my shoulder doesn't hurt, and it's just something fun to plink around with. But now, if I want something to train with at an affordable price, I can't do that. Or say I just wanted a new piece to my collection because I wanted a new hunting rifle, which actually I'm looking into getting a new hunting rifle because my dad's hunting rifle is kind of garbage. And I was, it's like, oh, hey, you could borrow mine for the season and I'll just get a new one. But now when this law comes into effect, that might not happen. if you get denied because the system is down, then how long is that system going to be down, and are they even going to replace it? So that's going to be a problem. I mean, we saw a lot of issues with the concealed carry implementation when they put it in New York State. People were getting denied. People were getting confused because the law kept changing. It's very scary. You have Eric Swalwell, who is sleeping with that Chinese spy. He's now saying, oh, we want to disarm Americans and da-da-da. Meanwhile, he's fucking a known Chinese spy. He's still married to her after it was found out she's a Chinese spy. And he's going on saying about how he wants to disarm Americans and all this shit. It's going to leave us open up to an attack, Part of the Second Amendment is to defend the United States from enemies both foreign and domestic. So if we get invaded tomorrow by the Chinese, right now we could defend ourselves because America has 400 million registered firearms. That's just the registered firearms, which I think everything needed to, all new firearms need to be registered by, I think, starting in 1980 or 1990. So from 1776 to 1979, nothing was fucking registered. It was just, you just had a gun or you didn't, and the only people that knew about it were the people you told about it. Now everything's registered. But since then, since registration became a thing, 400 million guns. 400 million. Now, what the Democrats want to do is they want to either ban guns or severely restrict guns, and that's a problem because how are we supposed to defend ourselves in case of a foreign enemy attacking us? Or say there's a fascist dictatorship that arises in the United States and they start hurtling people into cattle cars and concentration camps because of the color of their skin or the religion they practice. That's the Second Amendment is to defend the people from invasion or basically Nazi Adolf Hitler 2.0. So it's a very difficult situation now where government thinks it's okay to infringe on someone's rights. And this is all because of nepotism, a lack of term limits, and a lack of responsibility that occurs when people forget what their duty is to the country. They are forgetting what it means to be a politician in the United States and to uphold the democratic values of our country. I was just thinking this in the car today, on my way back from one of my clients, and I was thinking, people really forgot the ideological commitment to America. Like, they don't know what it means to be an American anymore. People know what it means to be a Chinese, a communist in the Chinese Party. People knew what it meant to be a communist in the Soviet Union. People knew what it meant to be French, in the during and aftermath of World War II. People knew what it meant to be an American up until recently, where it's like we fight for liberty and justice and democracy, and we are the champions of world peace globally, and we aid and abet democracy around the world. And people forget that. People say, oh, what does it mean to be an American? I don't know. I'm too poor to worry about it. Well, I want to give perspective. During the Great Depression, things were actually a lot worse than they are now. There were a lot less creature comforts, and people were genuinely starving, and they had to make meals out of just rice and flour and such. And my grandfather was alive. My nonno, whose flag is right here, he grew up in the Great Depression, and his shoes, he only had one pair of shoes, and they had holes in them, and he patched the holes in the shoes with newspaper. And he would shine shoes on the corner for money. And then Roosevelt came into power, and he was old enough to take part in the Civilian Conservation Corps, or the CCC. And they built railroads all throughout the country. He built them in Utah, and he built a lot of other public work projects. And, he ended up getting drafted in 1942, and then he went to war. So really, I think what it is today is, there's similar conditions where it's very hard to afford a home, things are tight for people, things are very difficult. Finding ways to succeed. Really, we just need to find ways to succeed, and that's always what being an American was about. All the people that tried to have an easy ride in America from 1776 onwards have always failed. Look at the Donner Party, right? Crossing through Utah, they were trying to find a quicker way. And all the people in the Donner Party were very, very wealthy. They were incredibly wealthy people. And one guy had 4 or 5 carts full of shit. And it was called like the land boat, based on how luxurious his cabins were that he was traveling with by horse. And half of them died because they were trying to cheap their way out. They thought they were shit, and they thought they deserved shit. And they got got. They got trying to find another way when they could have just taken the longer route and no one would have been injured or killed. But no, they wanted to find a shorter way, and they got fucked. And they argued the whole time about what they were entitled to, and bickering. There wasn't this unity where it was like, okay, we're going to pool our resources and we're going to create a shorter path and we're going to light the way forward for the future. No, they were a bunch of idealists. They thought they were entitled to shit, and they died. And that's been true for America for quite some time. You look at the Greatest Generation. They worked. They tried to find a way to survive in the worst economic downturn in the history of the United States, and they became the greatest generation and saved the country from ruin and propelled us into superpower status. We need something like that again. And you just need to think of ways to succeed. If something fails in your life where you're like, fuck, this isn't working out, take a risk and try something new. Just try to be as safe as possible when you take the risk, but you have to take risks to grow. You have to take risks to grow. If you don't take any risks, then you're not growing as a person, and your position is going to stay the same. In America, you have to wage war to succeed, and war with yourself. You have to battle your conditions, your previous conditions, and push forward, and then you have to battle the conditions around you and push through those and rebuild them. That's what I'm kind of trying to do, and we need that attitude again, where people have that and look for new ways to do stuff, because you can't just blame other people for your problems. And and everyone likes to blame the political corruption problem and and then don't get me wrong, there's a lot of problems, but also taking accountability for yourself is going to go a very long way when it comes to changing the world around you. When you change yourself, you change the world around you. That being said, having that attitude is going to drastically change the way politics are done in this country. If we go back to that old school attitude, push against, term limits, or have people limit themselves. Maybe we won't be able to change term limits, but if the people in Congress that join actively say, I am only serving 2 terms at most because I don't believe it is right to continue to have term limits, to continue to have limitless terms, then you could start a trend. Notice how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she never advocated for term limits and took herself out of the equation. She's still in there. She's still in the House 6 years later. So she is still full of shit. Has it been 6 years? She was in 2018, 19, 20, 1920, 2021, 21, 22, 5 years. So she went through 2 election cycles. She's on her 3rd term. She needs to get the fuck out. But the work's not done. The work will never get done until you do something about it, which she's not doing shit about it. Remember, she did vote to fund the Department of Homeland Security, which is also funding ICE, which is Immigration and Customs Authority, who she said she wanted to abolish. So she is full of shit. She's not going to do anything. If she wants to do one important thing, she should resign or not run again and say, I am no longer running because I believe in term limits. And I urge my fellow Congress members to do the same and limit their own terms or push legislation forward that prevents limits from happening. Here's the thing, too. A lot of people in America don't want to do something until there's a law made. But a lot of the things that were done in the United States were not done through legalese. They were done through morals and actions, moralistic actions. The Revolutionary War was not legally declared. It was a long brewing conflict that ended up in a feat of arms. Harper's Ferry, where John Brown tried to liberate slaves and lead an uprising to end slavery in 1859, or 1852 rather, and he failed and he got killed. But then 12 years later, the Civil War happened, and then slavery was abolished in 1865, and we had a change in the dichotomy of that. We had people that said, you know what? Segregation is bullshit. We're not doing this segregation shit anymore. And then in 1955, there was the Montgomery boycott, and that was all started by Rosa Parks. Well, it was initiated by the Student Nonviolent, or was it SDS or SNCC, Student Nonviolent Coordination Committee, and they were like, "Yo, Rosa, can you please do this?" And she was like, "Yeah, I'm down with it." And then she was the one that was used as a casus belli for triggering the anti-segregation movement. And then in 1964, not even 10 years later, all segregation was abolished. All types of civil rights were accorded to African Americans and all people of the United States. So, things got done in this country when people just said, we are no longer doing this, we're going to make a change and step up. Shit got done when the people said they were going to get it done. If you want to make a change in government, right? You really want to make a change. Don't get caught up in the DC insider bullshit. Don't get caught up in the legalese. Go in with a mission, stick to the fucking mission, have people around you to remind you to stick to the fucking mission or they're going to break your kneecaps, and you execute the plan. You want to end term limits? You go in saying, I'm only running for 1 term or 2 terms at most, and because I don't believe in limitless terms. I am imposing a term limit because that's what is needed to preserve democracy and end political corruption, is the end of political careerism. That is much more powerful than bitching and moaning for a law to get passed and then not following your own law and instead just saying, okay, well, if I can't beat him, I might as well join him and just be another scumbag. Don't fucking do that. Don't fucking do that. If you're going to advocate for it, you have to live it. When I was a member of the communist organizations that I was in, I lived the ideology and applied it to real life because this is how, if I'm going to advocate for something, you have to be 10 toes down. You have to be 10 toes down. A lot of people that, talk about politics and wanting to be involved politically, they are the antithesis. I said this on another podcast. You have Republicans that I even posted about it on Facebook, but I took it down because I try not to get too political on Facebook anymore. But, what I said was, Democrats want to take your guns, but they're protected by guns. They want to have a free and open society for one and all and shit like that. And then they repress their political opponents and try to jail them and then kill and then, do shit like what they're doing in Maui and hide the media, even though they criticize Trump for doing the same thing. And then you have the Republicans that say they're pro, they're moralistic and we're against abortion because we think it's murder and you shouldn't do drugs. They're bad and marriage is between a man and a woman and there's not more than 2 genders. And then you have fucking congressmen getting their dicks sucked by their male aides. You have they're doing fucking cocaine. They're embezzling money. They're cheating on their wives. They're fucking each other on Grindr. They're, all this other shit. They're over here talking about, Joe Biden being corrupt. And he is a corrupt shitbag, and his son Hunter should be tried if Donald Trump is going to get tried. But you have Republicans doing the same fucking shit. You have them doing the same fucking shit. You have monetary embezzlement. You have, collusion with the FBI, and, the Democrats do that too. But historically, working with the CIA to wage psyops against the American people. COINTELPRO. I mean, guys, come on. Donald Trump was against, he was for draining the swamp. The swamp is still fucking here. The swamp is here. Trust me, I like the sentiment. I do like the guy a little bit more now that he's out of the White House and now I had time to reflect on it. But dog, he did not drain the swamp. The swamp is still fucking here. The 3-letter agencies are still fucking here. Again, this is what now he's a DC outsider, but he's a billionaire and he's also an opportunist. You have to have morally sound people that are also not Washington insiders in office. They need to be regular people like me and you to really make a change. Anyway, I've been going on way too long.